Everyone has felt this at some point. There is a strange warmth in being indispensable to someone. Some people only call you when they have lost their way. Some only come back when they are broken. And every time, you open the door and let them in because it feels like love. But what if it isn't? What if it isn't love at all, but simply need? There is a belief most of us have internalized without ever questioning it. To love is to sacrifice. To stay is to be strong. Yet sometimes the deepest growth comes from learning to see the fine line between being loved and being used. This distinction is often lived in silence at the hands of someone who genuinely believes they love you. I want to tell you the story of Elena. Elena lived in a small village nestled between two hills. The road leading into it curved so sharply that you could never see who was coming until they were already standing right in front of you. Elena was neither wealthy nor famous, but everyone in the village knew her name because sooner or later, everyone needed her. When a neighbor's roof began to leak, Elena would show up with her husband's tools before anyone even asked. When a child fell ill and there was no one left to look after the younger ones, Elena was the one who gathered them in. Old William on the hill lost his wife and sat alone for weeks, barely eating. Every morning, it was Elena who appeared at his door, bread in hand. Silence at her side, waiting patiently until he found his words again. The villagers would say, "Elena has a gift, she was born to help," and Elena believed them. Because when she helped, something inside her settled into a quiet peace, as if she were exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Her husband, Thomas, was a quiet man with gentle eyes and strong hands, someone who could coax almost anything into shape from wood or stone. But he struggled to find steady work, and when hardship came knocking, Thomas would turn inward. He would go silent at the dinner table. He would stop asking how her day had been. He would sit by the fire for hours, staring into it, and Elena would bring him tea without being asked. He would take it without a word. When he finally found work, everything would shift. His face would brighten. Small jokes would return. Warmth would fill the house again. Elena called this rhythm marriage. She told herself, "You hold someone through the dark, and the light comes back." For years, she accepted this as simply how things were. Her closest friend was a woman named Sophie, who had been by her side since childhood. Sophie was sharp-minded and loud with laughter, the one who had always pulled Elena out of her own quiet world. But Sophie had a habit. Whenever her life became tangled, whenever she argued with her partner, lost money, or felt ashamed of a decision she had made, she would arrive at Elena's door, not to ask how Elena was doing, not to bring anything, simply to unload. Elena would take it all in. Sophie would leave lighter every time. Elena would be left alone, heavier than before. Still, Elena called this friendship. A true friend shows up in hard times, she told herself, and she took pride in being that person. There was also a young man in the village named Daniel, 17 years old, fatherless, his mother away working for most of the year. He was restless, always finding his way into some kind of trouble, not out of malice, but simply from not knowing what to do with his energy. Elena took him under her care. She gave him work in her garden, listened to his dreams, lent him money when he needed it. Each time she said, "I don't expect it back," but deep down, she always hoped he would prove himself worthy of her trust. For 2 years, Daniel came to her whenever there was nowhere else to go. And Elena gave, and gave, and gave. One day, Daniel told her, "You are the closest thing to a mother I have ever known." Those words filled her heart so completely that she did not notice she had stopped sleeping well. She did not notice that the small garden she had planted purely for herself, only for herself, had long since gone dry and untended. That autumn, something broke. Elena fell ill. It was nothing life-threatening, but serious enough to keep her in bed for 2 weeks, serious enough that she could help no one. She sent word to those around her. Then she waited. Thomas tried to keep the house running, but it did not come naturally to him. Before 5 days had passed, he began murmuring that things were piling up. that he was doing his best, but it was a lot to manage. He meant no harm. He simply made it clear, in quiet ways, that being the one who gives was supposed to be Elena's role, not his. Sophie came on the third day. She brought a small cake and spent most of the visit talking about a new problem with her partner. Before leaving, she squeezed Elena's hand and said, "You'll be better soon. You always are." Then she was gone. Daniel never came. Elena lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling. A deep stillness settled inside her. Not quite sadness, not quite anger, just a stillness. The kind that takes hold of a lake's surface just before it freezes. She thought about the neighbor's roof she had helped repair. That neighbor had never once asked how she was. She thought about old William, who had eaten her bread every morning for a month, and who, once recovered, had built a fence between their houses and barely nodded when they passed. She thought about Sophie and all the hours she had listened, and how Sophie would grow quiet and uncomfortable the one or two times Elena had tried to speak about her own pain. She thought about Daniel's words, the closest thing to a mother, beautiful words. But a child who truly loves his mother comes to her when she is sick, and she understood something. Not with bitterness, but with the quiet, deep clarity of a woman who had finally stopped looking away. She had not been loved. She had been useful. These are not the same thing. To be loved means someone sees you even when you have nothing left to give. To be useful means someone sees what they can take from you. A person can seem deeply devoted to you until the moment you can no longer give. And when that moment comes, they may not think of you at all. There is another painful truth. If you fill every empty space in someone's life, they never have to find their own way. They never have to grow. And you shrink quietly, imperceptibly, without anyone noticing. Not even yourself. On the 14th day, Elena got out of bed. She walked to her garden. She pulled out the dry weeds, turned the soil with her bare hands, and planted new seeds. Not for anyone else. For herself. That morning, she made a decision, simple in words, enormous in meaning. She would keep helping people, but differently. She would give when it made her feel like herself, not out of fear of saying no. She would pour from a full heart, not an empty one. The next time Sophie arrived with a storm behind her eyes and a half-formed story already on her lips, Elena set out 2 cups of tea and sat down. But this time, before Sophie could begin, Elena spoke first. "There's something I've been carrying for a long time that I'd like to share with you," she said, quietly, honestly, without drama. Sophie was surprised. She didn't know what to do at first, but she listened. And in that moment, something small and real passed between them that had never passed between them before. It was the beginning of an actual friendship, one where both women were present, not just one. Thomas noticed the change in Elena too. She no longer automatically filled his silences. She no longer disappeared into helpfulness before he had the chance to think. At first, it unsettled him. Then it made him curious. Slowly, a little clumsily, he began to ask her things. "How are you feeling today? What do you feel like having for dinner? What's on your mind?" Small questions but genuine ones. As for Daniel, he returned months later, looking a little older and a little quieter. He stood at her door for the first time without a problem in his hands. He said that when Elena had been sick, he had thought of her and that he was ashamed he had not come. Elena let him in. She did not say it was fine, that it didn't matter. She said, "I noticed. And I want you to know, the people who care about you show up on difficult days. You need to be that kind of person too. You are old enough for that now." He lowered his head. He understood that conversation gave him something that all of Elena's years of silent giving never could, a standard to rise to. Elena did not grow cold. She did not close her door, but she learned to open it differently, with choice, not obligation, with love, not fear. And in the months that followed, something unexpected happened. The people who truly cared for her began to come into focus. They had always been there, a few quiet, undemanding souls who never asked for much. But Elena had been so consumed with pouring herself into the loudest needs that she had never seen them. Now she saw them. Now she had something left to give to them, and to herself. If you have always been the one who gives, ask yourself this honestly. When you had nothing left to give, who stayed? The people who love you are not the ones who need you most. They are the ones who want you, not what you do, but who you are. Being needed can feel like love, especially if you have never seen what real love looks like up close. It feels warm. It feels important. But need feeds on hunger. It does not ask how you are. It only asks what you have. You are not a service. You are a person. The day you remind yourself of that, you will see clearly, without anger, without bitterness, who is truly there. Give, be kind, open your door, but do it from a place that belongs to you. Do it because you choose to, not because you have no other choice. This is not coldness. This is where real love begins for others, and above all, for yourself. Elena planted new seeds that morning, and her garden grew back stronger than it had ever been.